Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to a not indie book review, because I read traditional books sometimes. These days, I don't really get that much off of Bookish First, even though I still like the raffle site in general. It's just usually my indie list is a little too long to justify getting more traditional books, but I'll look through, and if something catches my eye and looks genuinely interesting, I'll go for it. And this book did that with two words: mercenary librarians. Mercenary librarians is two words put together that I never knew I desperately needed until I saw them. So of course I went and I read through the first line, which off the top of my head I believe goes, "Nina had broken the cardinal rule, and now she had to kill someone." And I was in and hyped and prepared, and like 2 days after it came in the mail, I was reading it. And yes, it is a 5-star, going right for it from the beginning. And that book is Deal with the Devil by Kit Rocha. Now, this author is not actually one person. It is a duo of two women who have been best friends ever since they found each other writing X-Men fan fiction. And yes, I adore that backstory. But what I love more than anything about this book is it found a solution to a problem that I've been having for a while. My problem is that while I love found families, it's my favorite trope, hands down, I'm always caught between, do I want the found family to begin at the beginning of the story, therefore give me a whole book's worth of found family, or do I want it to see it formed over the course of the story? Therefore, I get to see like the platonic love develop. It's always an issue. And this book came up with the solution. The solution is to have two separate found families come together to make one big found family. And that is a big task, but this needs to become a trend because I am so on board. So one of our found families is our mercenary librarians, a trio of women named Nina, Danny, and Maya. And they all come from backgrounds of not goodness. They've all been mutated in some way by different organizations. I believe Nina was, what was it called? The Franklin Center or something like that. And the other two were from Tech Corps, which, I mean, is just the general vague name for, you know, an evil mega corporation in a post-apocalypse. And yes, did I not mention it? This is a post-apocalypse. I feel like the cover kind of tells you that. Anyway, our other found family is this group of protectorate soldiers, super soldiers, who basically ran away, and as a result, the super sci-fi mechanics of their upgrades are deteriorating, and they're in a race against their own inner biological clock before this little doomsday device goes off in their heads. And their leader is Nox, who is the brooding, I want to be good, but I don't know if I can be angsty hero that I love. And he has his team who are down one, and it aggravates them, and it changed a lot. And Nox has to make some very big decisions. I don't want to reveal too much, but Nox decides to approach Nina with this mission to find this underground bunker full of old books from the old Library of Congress that they can basically save a gigantic amount of work together. But he kind of low-key has ulterior motives that he was forced into, and his guilt is a running factor. And the whole idea of, is he willing to sacrifice his conscience to save his team from their own degrading upgrades? And it is exactly the amount of angst that I needed, apparently, because I love him. But the best part about this is, because Nina also comes from a background with mutations, she can handle it. There is no twisted gender roles here. There are multiple times where the Silver Devils, the team of Protectorate soldiers, well, ex-Protectorate soldiers, are in trouble, and the women had to come in and save them. And the men are like, oh good, they're here to save us. We would have lost this battle without them. And so having the women be the ones to ride in to save the day kind of dispelled any ingrained notion of like gender rules. It made everyone on this equal playing field of everyone can save everyone else. And like, even the couple times that like Nox jumps in front of Nina to protect her, you're like, okay, it's just his programming, let's just go with it. But the fights are really, really intense. Now, it's kind of obvious from the get-go that Nina and Nux have a thing for each other. It's not really a meet cute. It's really more of a meet hot because they burn from the get-go, and it's delicious. There are also a couple of sex scenes over the course of the story, so if you're not into things getting that graphic, I would still read it, just maybe skip it when it starts getting to that extent, because I loved it to death. And even like 100 pages in, I already knew that this was fantastic. And I actually, I got bored, so I ended up tweeting my quote-unquote synopsis out, and I said something to the effect of, a found family with a disaster bisexual meets a found family with a chaos bisexual, and they create a bigger found family with double the bisexuals, and also everyone has superpowers. And one of the authors actually messaged me. She goes, you're missing some bisexuals. Because that's kind of one of the best parts about this, is like, it's weirdly, I think, queer norm. Like, you never get the gist that people from like the big higher up places are supportive, but they're not supportive of like anything, so it's not really a thing. But like, multiple characters just be like, oh, you know, this Silver Devil, he might get a little distracted by pretty girls, but he loses his mind over surly boys. And you're like, and it just kind of happens. And you find out that, oh, one of Nina's exes is a woman, and it's almost like being bisexual is kind of just the standard for the characters in this book, and I loved it. One of the authors also replied to that tweet, which got a lot more traction than I was expecting, and she said something to the effect of, found families and disaster bisexuals is the Kit Rocha promise, and if that's the case, I'm gonna have to start reading more by these two ladies, because this was so good. Now, I'm saving the obvious note for last, and that is this a story that people would want to read in this era of human history? Because we are in a very historic time, not necessarily in a good way, and with the world going crazy, is reading a post-apocalypse type story a good decision? And I'll admit, there were times at the beginning when they were talking about the downfall of society, and they were talking about how there were solar flares. In this story, that's how the world fell apart, with solar flares that wiped out a bunch of technology and threw everything into chaos. And they mentioned how it wasn't the solar flares alone that did it. It was the solar flares combined with a faltering government, combined with greedy corporations that had their claws sunk into that government. And that description, yeah, came way too close to home right now. And you need to be the kind of person that needs their fiction to be something that works through what their problems are, as opposed to sheer escapism. Because despite the fact this is a post-apocalypse, the themes are actually very applicable for this point in time. A lot of the themes in this book deal with how can you look at a world that is so screwed up and still find the good in it. It is a whole point of Knox's personal arc, his focus on, I've done so many horrible things being a protectorate soldier. Even my most heroic things were really just me not being as horrible as they wanted me to be. And can I be the hero? And what does that mean? And what does redemption even look like? And is forgiveness even possible? And then on Nina's end, Nina is much more an idealist and views her own past not happily, but over the course of the story, as things happen, she realizes more and more that what she thought was just normal was actually kind of fucked. And a lot of what happened at the Franklin Center was really twisted, and now even the happy memories she did have from there are darker now. But her whole arc is about maintaining that idealism, looking at people that might betray her or the horrible things people will do, and maintaining it, because the community that she basically runs, it's not a strict hierarchy, but it's basically understood that in this little corner of the world, Nina is the one kind of heading everything. And it's her looking at how horrible the world is and saying, no, I'm gonna keep fighting. I'm gonna keep being idealist and keep going after things and keep working to help others. And it's Knox saying, okay, I can't change what I did back then, but I can be better now. He talks about wanting to open this clinic and wanting to basically start anew and actually do the heroic things that he was claimed to have done before. And it's also them finding their people, because the found families coming together in themselves was beautifully done. It was never Nina and Knox are falling for each other and they just pull everyone else together. There are multiple chapters from other characters' point of views. Now, very obviously, Nina and Knox are the protagonists, but like Danny gets a chapter and Rafe gets a chapter and Gray gets a chapter and a couple of them get couple chapters, and you see from their perspectives and you see every character from each side forming affection for characters from the other side. Now, I believe there's possibly 2 other couples forming, but even then, it's, there's still non-romantic, some platonic relationships forming. And so in a weird way, if you're the kind of person that needs your art to help you work through things, this is a very good pick. I'm hoping to actually find some work in books to develop a list of positive or hopeful takes on apocalyptic tales, but that's neither here nor there. This isn't the best pick, obviously, if you want pure escapism. If you want pure, I want to see light, fluffy, happy things to take me completely away. But if you're someone like me who's looking at the time period and going, I need someone to prove to me that we can get through this with our sanity intact, that we can get through this still having faith in the world, like that kind of, I don't want to ignore this, I want to work through this mentality, this is a fantastic choice. The problem, of course, being that its release date has been pushed back by many months. When I originally began reading this, I was preparing it for this month, A, because April is Indie April and I'm going to focus exclusively on indie books that month, and B, because it is coming out in May, so I needed to get it out in time. Now it's not coming out until July, and I did not even realize that until I went to write out the review for this on Goodreads. So it kind of sucks because, in a weird way, as hard a sell as post-apocalypse would be for a lot of people right now, this does show how to work through it and how to maintain your humanity and how to maintain your view of the world through it. And so I wish y'all could read it sooner. Like, that's kind of bumming me out. Especially since some people have already been like, oh, I'm pre-ordering it off of my tweet, which was surprising, and never doubt your influence, guys. Even one tweet can help an author make sales. I highly suggest that you pre-order this. Highly suggest. Part of me is like, well, I could afford to maybe send this to someone, but no, I love this. This is mine now. Low key want to find out how I can get on the ARC list for the rest of the series. But also there is a epilogue that sets up the next one, and that is not very happy. Someone else mentioned on Twitter in response to that tweet that their partner cried about it. I did not cry, but I don't cry at books a lot. So, and also, I don't know if it was sad tears or happy tears because I was too afraid to ask because I was afraid it would spoil it. But it was adorable, a great ending, and a very uplifting message overall. I really hope it sells at least decently enough to continue with the series. I have no idea what effect everything going on is going to have on the stories, but history has shown that when major, gigantic world things happen, it changes what we want in our fiction. So I have no idea, but I hope that in whatever the book world looks like in the next year or two, once we have moved past the worst of this, I hope there's still room in the culture for this book because I truly adored it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're staying as safe and healthy as you possibly can. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter or invite me to your Discord. I am endlessly searching for group chats to join right now, just to get me out of my own house, even just mentally. But thank you so much for watching. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a healthy tomorrow.